It is a disturbing truth, but some people do not merely cause pain by accident. They enjoy it. They enjoy confusion, control, and the quiet destruction of another person's peace. And the most dangerous part is this. They rarely look dangerous at first. They may be the person you trust, the person who makes you laugh, the person who seems to understand you deeply, until one day you realize they are the source of the heaviness you have been carrying for far too long. Today, we are stepping into a subject that is both unsettling and necessary. How to recognize the signs that you are dealing with an evil person, not a villain from a story, not some exaggerated monster from a movie, but a very real person who repeatedly chooses manipulation, cruelty, deception, and harm. It could be a colleague, a friend, a partner, even someone inside your own family. Many of these people hide in plain sight. They cover darkness with charm. They cover malice with confidence. They cover selfishness with beautiful words. And that is exactly why clear perception matters. The Stoics understood this with unusual depth. They taught that peace does not begin with wishful thinking. It begins with seeing reality as it is. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca each remind us that wisdom starts when illusion ends. Because if you cannot see who is truly standing before you, you cannot defend your mind, your energy, or your peace. This is not merely an interesting conversation, it is a protective one. When you learn to recognize dark patterns in other people, you stop blaming yourself for wounds they deliberately created. You stop confusing their cruelty with your weakness, and you begin to protect what matters: your mind, your boundaries, your future. Stoicism teaches us to respond with reason, with self-command, and with virtue, not with panic, not with people-pleasing, not with the chaos that toxic people try to plant inside your inner world. And once you can name these patterns clearly, you become harder to manipulate, harder to guilt, and harder to control. So, stay with me. Because in this journey, we will uncover 5 powerful signs that reveal an evil character. And at the end, we will explore a practical Stoic path for setting calm, firm boundaries without guilt, without drama, and without losing your self-respect. By the time this video ends, you will be far better at recognizing danger early, protecting your inner life, and walking away when necessary with clarity, not shame. If you value deep and honest conversations like this, and you want more Stoic insight for real human struggles, subscribe now to Stoic Ocean and become part of this community of steady, thoughtful, resilient minds. It costs nothing, but it helps these ideas reach the people who may need them most. And stay with me to the very end. Because the bonus section on Stoic Boundaries may be exactly what you need if someone in your life has been draining your peace for years. Now, let us begin. Sign 1. A charming face, a dangerous core. Some of the most dangerous people you will ever meet do not arrive looking dangerous. They arrive smiling. They enter a room and immediately shift the atmosphere. They are witty, magnetic, confident, and strangely easy to like. They know how to make people feel noticed, chosen, special, and at first, that kind of energy can feel irresistible. You may even think you have just met someone rare, someone unusually warm, someone unusually alive, but the Stoics warn us again and again. Do not surrender to first impressions. Observe. Watch what remains true after the charm has had time to settle. Because with people like this, the danger is often not in the entrance. It is in the pattern that appears later. Spend enough time around them and the shine begins to crack. You start noticing how deeply they need to be admired, how often they turn every conversation back toward themselves, how quickly they interrupt, how effortlessly they speak over others, how naturally they pull the light back onto their own face. Even their humor begins to reveal something. Many toxic people use laughter as cover. They make little jabs, small humiliations, subtle insults, and then smile as if it were all harmless fun. They say, "I am just joking." Do not be so sensitive. Relax, but beneath the joke, someone has been cut. And often they enjoy that cut more than they admit. This is what matters. Their charm is not always an innocent trait. Sometimes it is an entry strategy. A way to lower your guard, a way to gain access to your trust, a way to study what moves you, what flatters you, and where your weakness lives. That is why Stoic calm matters here. Marcus Aurelius speaks about inner steadiness, a mind not carried away by praise, flattery, or spectacle. When you remain calm, you do not get hypnotized by presentation. You begin to see character. Imagine this person at a party. They seem electric. Everyone laughs. Everyone listens. Everyone feels drawn into their orbit. At first, it even feels exciting to be near them. But keep watching. When you speak about something meaningful, they drift. When someone else receives praise, they make a joke that quietly shrinks that person's moment. When attention leaves them, their energy changes. Not always openly. Sometimes just enough for you to feel that strange tension underneath the performance. And then the truth becomes harder to ignore. They are not interested in connection. They are interested in control through attention. They do not simply enjoy being appreciated. They need to dominate the emotional space. And if putting others down helps them remain central, many of them will do it gladly. The Stoic response is not outrage. It is not drama. It is not hatred. It is clarity, a quiet inner sentence. I see the pattern. I will not be seduced by the surface. So slow yourself down around charming people. Do not decide too early. Watch how they treat people who cannot benefit them. Watch how they behave when they are ignored, corrected, or denied. Do they stay grounded, or do they become sharp, cruel, and resentful the moment their ego is touched? The more calmly you observe, the less power their charm will have over your choices. Sign 2. An empty heart, no real empathy. Empathy is more than being nice. It is the capacity to feel another person's pain without mocking it, dismissing it, or turning away from it. It is what allows human beings to comfort one another, to celebrate one another, and to remain human in each other's presence. Without empathy, relationships become cold. They become transactional. They become places where one person gives and the other one only takes. The Stoics understood that human life is shared life. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we are made for one another. Seneca spoke often of justice, kindness, and the duty to treat others with dignity. So when a person repeatedly shows no empathy, that is not a small flaw, it is a warning. Imagine opening up about something painful, a loss, a disappointment, a quiet season of exhaustion. You do not need a perfect answer, you only need a little humanity, but instead they joke. They dismiss, they change the subject, or worse, they make you feel weak for having spoken at all. And after enough moments like that, something painful happens. You stop sharing. You begin editing your own feelings before you speak them. You start apologizing for needs that are completely human. That is not strength. That is what emotional neglect does to a person over time. And it works in the other direction too. When something good happens in your life, a healthy person can rejoice with you. They can celebrate without envy, without competition, without needing to pull the moment back toward themselves. But a toxic person often cannot do that. They minimize your success, ignore it, compete with it, or answer your joy with a story about themselves. Their emotional world has room mainly for their own needs, their own pain, their own image. That emptiness becomes especially destructive in the workplace. Think of a manager who drives people into exhaustion, demands more, takes more, expects more, yet never pauses to ask, "Are you all right? What do you need? How much are you carrying?" People like this do not see others as human beings. They see function, they see output, they see usefulness, and Stoic justice rejects that entirely. To the Stoics, a person is never just a tool. They are part of the same human fabric you belong to. So if someone repeatedly dismisses your pain, mocks your vulnerability, or remains untouched by obvious suffering, you are not overreacting to feel disturbed. This is not normal toughness. It is emotional deadness, and in many cases, it becomes the soil where cruelty grows. Ask yourself honestly, after speaking with this person, do I feel seen, or do I feel diminished? Do I feel safe, or do I feel ashamed? Have I started believing that my emotions are a burden? If the answer is yes, the problem is not that your heart feels too much. The problem is that you are standing too close to someone who feels too little. The Stoic response is not to beg them for compassion. It is to recognize reality. This person cannot meet me at a human level, so I must protect my inner life. Create distance where needed. Share less. Offer your vulnerability only to those who have shown they can hold it with care. That is not coldness, that is wisdom. Sign 3. Manipulation, gaslighting, and the slow collapse of your inner compass. If charm is the doorway and low empathy is the warning, manipulation is the mechanism that does the damage. A manipulative person does not merely want to be near you, they want leverage. They want influence over your emotions, your choices, your guilt, and your sense of what is real. And one of their most effective weapons is gaslighting. Gaslighting happens when someone twists reality so persistently that you begin doubting your own memory, your own judgment, and eventually your own sanity. You bring up something hurtful they clearly did. They deny it. They tell you it never happened, or that you are confused, or too sensitive, or imagining things. Then somehow, by the end of the conversation, you are the one apologizing. Not because you were wrong, but because they have trained the whole exchange to bend toward confusion. This is how the fog begins. At first, you simply feel unsettled. Then you begin replaying conversations inside your head. Then you start wondering whether your memory can still be trusted. Some people reach the point where they keep messages, screenshots, or notes, not because they are obsessive, but because their own mind no longer feels safe enough to stand on by itself. That is how deep this damage can go. From a Stoic perspective, this is especially dangerous. Stoicism rests on perception, judgment, and reason. It asks you to see clearly, name clearly, and act clearly. So when someone repeatedly attacks your perception, they are attacking the foundation of your inner freedom. Manipulators also know how to weaponize guilt. They play the victim. They imply that you are selfish for having limits. They suggest you are cruel for saying no. They remind you of everything they have supposedly done for you, not as love, but as a debt you must keep repaying. And because many good people already fear hurting others, this tactic works. You find yourself agreeing to things you never wanted, not from peace, but from pressure. Manipulation also seeks to isolate, slowly, quietly. They cast suspicion on your friends. They question your family. They hint that no one understands you the way they do. And with enough repetition, you begin withdrawing from the very people who could have helped you see clearly. That is why manipulation is so dangerous. It does not merely hurt you, it separates you from your own compass. Stoic wisdom gives us a way back. Epictetus teaches us to return to what is ours, our judgment, our choices, our interpretation. We cannot control another person's lies, but we can refuse to hand them the final authority over our reality. So begin simply. Ask yourself, what happens to me after serious conversations with this person? Do I leave clearer, steadier, and more free? Or do I leave feeling guilty, foggy, ashamed, and strangely dependent? That question matters, because love does not consistently leave you confused. Friendship does not systematically weaken your trust in yourself. If a person again and again pulls you into self-doubt, cuts you off from support, and makes you question your own reality, that is not care. That is manipulation. And before we go further, if this conversation is helping you put language to what you have lived, subscribe to Stoic Ocean, leave a comment below, and let me know which of these signs feels most familiar. Sometimes the first step toward freedom is simply realizing that what you felt all along was real. Now, let us continue. Sign 4. Control in every direction. Deeply toxic people are rarely satisfied with influence alone. Influence is not enough. They want control. They want access to your decisions, your time, your movements, your relationships, and gradually, your entire way of living. And the most dangerous part is that control does not always begin as control. At first, it often wears the mask of care. They say, "I am only trying to protect you. I know what is best. Those people are bad for you. Trust me." And because it sounds concerned or loving or strong, you may not recognize the pattern immediately. But then it grows. First, they advise. Then, they question. Then they monitor. Then they restrict. And finally, they punish resistance. That is how control usually escalates. You notice they want a say in where you go, who you see, how long you stay, why you answered late, why you liked that post, why you need privacy at all. They ask for passwords. They check your phone. They monitor your messages. They speak as if your independence is a threat rather than a right. And if you resist, they do not calmly respect the boundary. They accuse, they guilt you, they imply you must be hiding something, or they act offended that you do not trust their so-called protection. Control often spreads into money as well. At first, they may offer help. Then they take over. They say it will be easier if they manage things, safer if they hold access, simpler if you let them decide for both of you, and slowly, you realize you no longer feel fully connected to your own resources. You feel dependent, you feel watched, you feel smaller. From a Stoic perspective, this is serious. Stoicism is rooted in inner freedom, in the ability to choose your actions according to reason and virtue. So when someone constantly pressures, threatens, monitors, or corners you until your will bends, they are not loving you. They are training you to abandon yourself. Control also uses fear, sometimes subtly, sometimes openly. They threaten to leave, threaten to expose, threaten to ruin, threaten to harm themselves, not as a cry for healing, but as a weapon to keep you frozen. These are not expressions of deep love. They are instruments of domination. The Stoic response to fear is courage guided by clarity. Seneca reminds us that fear grows when we refuse to look directly at what is happening. So begin by naming the pattern honestly, not "they are just intense," not "they are only protective." Say the truth. They are controlling me. They are restricting my freedom. They are feeding on my hesitation. And from there, rebuild quietly, one deliberate step at a time. Reconnect with people you trust. Regain access to your own decisions. Protect your finances. Set limits on what they can know and what they can touch. You do not need a dramatic performance to reclaim your life. You need clarity, consistency, and quiet determination. Sign 5. Pathological lying. When truth is no longer safe. Every healthy relationship stands on one invisible ground: trust. And when that ground keeps cracking, everything built on it eventually begins to shake. Pathological liars do not tell the occasional small lie out of embarrassment or fear. They build entire patterns of deception. They lie for advantage. They lie to escape blame. They lie to shape how others see them. And sometimes they lie so often that falsehood becomes their normal language. At first, the lies may look small: a polished story, an exaggerated past, a borrowed achievement, a detail adjusted to make them appear more impressive, more admirable, more innocent. But over time, the pattern deepens. Stories stop matching. Timelines shift. Facts move. Names change. And each version of the truth seems designed for the moment, not anchored to reality. When confronted, they rarely stop. They deny. They deflect. They invent a new lie to protect the old one, and slowly, life around them starts to feel unstable. Not because reality changed, but because truth is no longer being honored. This is where sign 5 differs from manipulation. Manipulation makes you doubt yourself. Pathological lying makes the entire ground of trust collapse. You begin second-guessing not only your memory, but every story, every promise, every explanation, every apology. Your nervous system stays alert. Because when truth is constantly shifting, peace becomes impossible. This is deeply opposed to Stoic living. The Stoics built their lives around reality, reason, and integrity. To live according to nature is to live in alignment with truth. So chronic deception is not a minor flaw. It is a fracture in character itself. Think of a workplace where one person lies about qualifications, steals credit, changes facts, and spreads rumors to protect their image. Very quickly, the environment turns poisonous. People stop collaborating, they stop trusting, they spend more energy guarding themselves from betrayal than doing meaningful work. Now think of an intimate relationship with someone like this. They lie about where they were, who they were with, what they feel, what they intend, what they promised. And after enough lies, you stop relaxing. You start scanning, comparing stories, looking for inconsistencies, trying to predict which version of them you are speaking to today. That is not love. That is survival. And survival is not how trust is meant to feel. You scan for clues, replay conversations, and begin doubting what your own heart already knows, because they keep repeating, "You are overreacting. You are paranoid. You are imagining things." And that is how a liar poisons reality. Not only with false words, but with enough denial to make you distrust your own perception. So when you catch a lie, do not only examine the lie itself, watch the response. A person committed to growth, truth, and virtue may feel ashamed. They may struggle, but they will face what they have done. Take responsibility and try to rebuild trust through consistent action. A pathological liar does something different. They defend, they deflect, they deny. Or they build a second lie to protect the first and a third lie to protect the second, until the whole room feels like it is spinning and you no longer know what to hold on to. Stoic practice calls you out of that spinning room, back to your center, back to observation, back to reason. Trust what you repeatedly see, not what they repeatedly claim. Notice patterns, not isolated excuses. Notice contradictions, not charming explanations. And if the ground of truth is gone, if every conversation demands that you betray your own clarity just to stay connected, then stepping away may not be cruelty, it may be integrity. Your peace of mind, your self-respect, and your inner clarity are worth more than staying loyal to someone who keeps poisoning reality. Stoic boundaries, protecting your peace. Now that we have looked closely at these 5 signs, the next question is simple. What do you do now? How do you protect yourself without becoming bitter, vengeful, or cold? This is where Stoic boundaries become essential. A boundary is a clear line that defines what you will accept, what you will not accept, and how you will respond when that line is crossed. It is not revenge. It is not punishment. It is self-respect made visible. From a Stoic perspective, healthy boundaries begin with inner clarity. You reflect honestly on your values, your limits, and your responsibilities. Then you communicate clearly, and when necessary, you act consistently. First, be honest with yourself. Where have you said yes while your whole being was saying no? Where have you allowed your time, your energy, your kindness, or your peace to be drained by someone who gives little back except confusion, pressure, or pain? If it helps, write it down. Not as self-blame, as self-knowledge. This is not weakness, it is clarity. Second, turn that clarity into simple boundaries. You might say, I will not remain in conversations where I am mocked. I will not share my private life with people who use it against me. I will not allow anyone to control my money, my movements, or my decisions. These do not need to sound dramatic. They need to be true. Third, communicate clearly when it is necessary. Not with a speech, not with emotional chaos, just with calm, direct language. When you speak to me that way, I will end this conversation. If you continue to lie about me, I will step back from this relationship. Say less, mean it more, then let your actions carry the weight. Fourth, expect resistance. People who benefited from your silence will not celebrate your clarity. They may become angry, they may guilt-trip you, they may promise change for a short time, only to return to the same behavior once they think you have softened again. This is where Stoic strength matters. Do not argue endlessly. Do not explain forever. Remember why the boundary exists. Remember the cost of having none. Hold the line calmly, but hold it. And sometimes the healthiest boundary is distance. Distance is not hatred. Distance is wisdom when peace cannot survive at close range. It means you value your future too much to keep standing where harm is predictable. So turn instead toward people who respect your freedom, speak truthfully, and treat your inner life with care. And throughout this process, take care of yourself. Setting boundaries with deeply toxic people can stir up fear, old wounds, loneliness, and doubt. So meet that difficulty with grounding practices. Walk, write, breathe. Spend time in silence. Spend time in nature. Return to the Stoic writings that remind you who you are when chaos is not speaking for you. Boundaries are not the opposite of love. Often, they are what protect love from becoming self-betrayal, walking away from darkness. Evil people rarely announce themselves with dramatic music or obvious signs. They hide behind charm. They lack empathy. They manipulate. They control. They distort the truth. But as you have seen, their nature becomes visible to a careful and disciplined eye. Recognizing these signs is not about becoming suspicious of everyone. It is not about labeling every flawed person as evil. We all have weaknesses. We all make mistakes. The difference is intention and repetition. A harmful person chooses deceit, cruelty, and domination again and again, even when they have the chance to choose differently. And your task is not to save them. It is not to fix them. It is not to lose yourself trying to prove your goodness to someone who feeds on your confusion. Your task is to protect your mind, to protect your heart, to protect your capacity for reason, virtue, and inner freedom. Stoicism does not ask you to endure abuse silently. It asks you to see clearly, respond wisely, set boundaries firmly, and walk away when peace demands it. So remember this: you deserve relationships where honesty is normal, where empathy is natural, where respect flows both ways. You deserve environments where your growth is supported, not threatened. And you deserve a life that is guided by truth, clarity, and self-respect, not by another person's darkness, control, or chaos. Stay strong, stay wise, and keep choosing the kind of life that no manipulator, no liar, and no cruel heart gets to define for you. If this video spoke to something real inside your experience, subscribe to Stoic Ocean, share it with someone who may need it, and leave a comment below about which sign felt most familiar to your life. Your voice matters here. And every honest reflection helps build a community where wisdom, courage, and calm strength can grow. Thank you for watching. Thank you for reflecting. And thank you for choosing clarity over confusion, truth over illusion, and peace over chaos. One line stayed in Alex's mind. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. And suddenly, everything became clearer. The confusion, the guilt, the constant self-doubt, all of it had been staining Alex's inner world for far too long. So Alex began to write things down. Not to obsess, not to build a case, but to see clearly what happened, what was said, how it felt. And as the pages filled, the same patterns kept appearing. Charm on the surface, coldness underneath, control disguised as care. and lies that bent reality just enough to keep trust unstable. Slowly, Alex accepted a difficult truth. This was not an imperfect friendship with ordinary flaws. It was a bond that was draining peace more than it was giving love. So with calm resolve, Alex set a boundary. No shouting, no drama, no revenge. Just clear words. The jokes, the guilt, and the broken trust were no longer acceptable. And unless something changed in a real and consistent way, Alex would step back. Jordan responded the way many toxic people do. First anger, then tears, then promises. But still, no honest ownership. And for the first time, Alex did not get pulled back into the cycle. They held the line. At first it hurt. There was grief. Grief for the memories. Grief for the version of the friendship Alex wanted to believe in. Grief for the comfort of someone who once felt safe. But with time, something else appeared. Relief. More space. More calm. More room for relationships where honesty did not feel rare and empathy did not need to be begged for. Alex did not walk away out of cruelty. Alex walked away because reality had finally become too clear to ignore. And sometimes that is what courage looks like. Not fighting, not fixing, just refusing to keep living inside a lie. Maybe you see yourself in Alex. Maybe you see yourself in someone Alex had to leave. Maybe you see a little of both. Wherever this touches your own life, remember this: awareness is the beginning of change. And one honest step can start changing the direction of an entire life. A simple Stoic practice. Keeping your center. If you want a practical way to stay steady around difficult people, begin here. In the morning, pause for a minute before the day begins and remind yourself, today I may meet people who are deceptive, controlling, or unkind. Their behavior belongs to them. My character belongs to me. Then choose one virtue to carry consciously. Courage, wisdom, justice, self-control. Let that virtue guide your responses through the day. And at night, take a few quiet moments to reflect. Where did I stay clear? Where did I abandon my own limits? Where did I act from fear? And where did I act from clarity? This is not self-punishment. It is training. A steady return to the person you want to become. With enough practice, chaotic people may still appear, but they no longer take over your mind. You still see them. You still feel their presence, but you do not hand them power over your inner life. And that is Stoic strength. A final reminder. You are not here to become cold. You are not here to become suspicious of everyone. And you are not here to label every flaw as evil. We all fail. We all have weaknesses, but there is a difference between imperfection and a repeated pattern of harm. A difference between struggle and manipulation. A difference between weakness and chosen cruelty. Your task is not to save every difficult person. Your task is not to lose yourself trying to prove your goodness to someone who feeds on confusion. Your task is to protect what is in your care. Your mind, your heart, your peace, your capacity for reason, virtue, and honest love. Stoicism does not ask you to hate harmful people. It asks you to see clearly, to respond wisely, to set boundaries firmly, and when necessary, to walk away without shame. So if this message speaks to something real in your life, carry it with you. You are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to trust what reality keeps showing you. You are allowed to protect your soul from people who make darkness feel normal. Stay strong, stay wise, and keep choosing a life shaped by truth, clarity, and self-respect. If this video has helped you, subscribe to Stoic Ocean, share it with someone who may need it, and leave a comment below about which sign spoke to you most deeply. Thank you for being here, and thank you for choosing clarity over confusion, truth over illusion, and peace over chaos.